Test. We are,
Thanks, sir.
we're ready to roll.
All right. I will call to order the Riverside City Council meeting for Monday, March 3rd, 2025 at 6:01 PM. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Denning?
Here.
Ms. Fry?
Here.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Ms. Lomach?
Yes.
Mr. Maxfield? Mayor Williams?
Here.
Move to excuse absent member.
I'll second that. We have a motion for Mr. Joseph and a second for Mr. Brown to excuse our absent council member. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Mr. Manager, any additions or corrections to the agenda as presented?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Move to approve.
Second. We have a motion for Mr. Joseph and a second for Mr. Brown to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Agenda is approved. If you're able, please join us to rise and pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If there's any citizens joining us tonight who would like to comment on any agenda or non-agenda item, there are forms in the back of this room that you can fill out and turn into the clerk up at the dais. And first, we will go to the minutes of which we have all had a chance to review from our meeting on February 18th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as published?
So moved.
We have a motion for Ms. Lomach and a second for Mr. Denning. All those in favor of approving the minutes as published signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Minutes are approved. If there's anyone who would like to comment on agenda items, and I believe we have one citizen wishing to speak tonight, and that's the only slip so far?
Yeah, that should probably occur during the discussion item, don't you think?
So
It's an
the,
agenda-
I haven't seen
the,
this slip.
the agenda item is to comment on item
discussion
12C,
item.
our discussion on hometown holiday.
C.
Post-business.
Did I say C? I
Oh,
say
that's,
E.
yeah, that would be the chair's discretion, but I don't
Yeah.
see any problem with that.
Would it be okay if your comment was while we're discussing this group? Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Denning. So we will put a pin in this and cover it when we get to that portion of the agenda. And there's no other slips turned in. So we'll move right into new business, of which we have 3 resolutions. Mr. Manager, 25-R-3017 is,
This is a resolution allowing us to enter into design with ODOT for the Beatrice and Harshman intersection. Ms. Moore is here if you have any other specific questions about this item.
This is the stoplight, right?
Yes, traffic signal improvements at Harshman.
Move to
Beatrice.
When will that construction start?
Construction award June of '26.
Oh, so this is a year from now.
Right, this is the preliminary legislation that ODOT requires. We just submitted stage 3 design. It'll be refined further by the end of the year, and then we'll have our final legislation.
Okay, thank you.
all right, so we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Ms. Lomach and a second from Mr. Joseph. Is there any further discussion among members of council?
This is a project that we've been working on for probably, I think,
5
7 to
years.
10 years, something like that.
I think I
5
saw
years.
the original information was in 2018, when we first did started the idea with the safety study.
Yeah,
So
so
it's
it-
a long time coming.
Yes, thank you.
All right. All those in favor of Resolution 25-R-3017 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. The second one, Mr. Manager, is the Bob Childs Classic.
Correct. This is the annual donation that council gives for that event. It's a $100 donation.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Ms. Lomach and a second from Mr. Brown. Is there any further discussion among members of council? Hearing none, all those in favor of Resolution 25-R-3018 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. And our,
We do, that does buy us a sign on the golf course that
Correct.
shows.
Yes.
the
Yeah, that's a whole sponsor.
Yeah, we're a whole sponsor, so it shows all the business people that we're supporting event.
Absolutely.
Sorry to interrupt you.
It's a great event. And our final resolution is one I think we're all excited for, 25-R-3019. Mr. Manager, if you'd like to tell us a little bit more about this.
This is accepting the lowest and best bid for the modular pump track amenity at Roar Park. And again, Ms. Moore is present if you have any other specific questions about that item.
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Is there any further discussion?
So, is this, like, did Parks and Recreation have a say in, like, the design or any of the?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And with the modular pump track, I guess that's like a cost-effective way of, like, installing like a bike feature into the park instead of like dirt or anything of that nature?
Right.
Okay.
The modular pump track is actually the lowest cost model of a pump track versus dirt or asphalt. So, and when I say like 100 times less
Mhm.
in terms of cost, but it fits the concrete pad where the concession stand used to be, and the number of hills, rollers, all the features was specifically picked out by the Parks and Recreation Committee to entertain entry-level riders up to like mid-level riders. So a lot of thought went into it. We were excited to receive 2 bids on it, so it's within our budget. We're really excited. And if all goes well, it's delivery in May, installation by June.
That's awesome. I have no further questions.
All right, if there's no further questions or discussion among members of council, all those in favor of Resolution 25-R-3019 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Moving along on our agenda, we will now have any public comment on non-agenda items, and we just received a slip. So if Mr. John Ziegler is here with us, if you could please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Thank you for being with us tonight, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes after you give your name and address. Thank you again.
Thank you for letting me speak. My name
Absolutely.
is John Ziegler. My address is 4238 Blue Rock Road, Riverside, Ohio. Okay, at some other meetings I went to, we talked about how we could have a charter review thing at any time, and I would like to bring one item forward today that I would like to see you guys consider, to where our mayor could be a full-time position available to the citizens all day long, or, you know, how they do flex hours or whatever with other items. So that's all I had to say. I just wanted you guys to discuss it a little bit if you could. And I think it would help to organize stuff more, to have a great speaker here all the time. And we only get to see him a little bit now. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that's certainly something I think we can all digest, and I don't know if there's anyone who wants to discuss it this moment, but I think that we could always mull over it. I'll pass that down for you guys to look at as well. See if there's any thought. I will say, I think in Ohio, there's maybe 4 full-time mayors, maybe 5. Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, Dayton.
Should be it.
And those
And-
are, well,
Full-time paid salary.
A lot larger municipalities than this.
yeah.
Well,
No, Cheviot's 10,000 residents. They have a full-time meter.
are they a strong mayor form of government?
Yeah, that was what I was
Yeah,
just going to say,
thank
is
you.
oftentimes,
Yeah, strong
you're
mayor
also
form.
talking about changing your form of government into strong mayor, which in my own self-interest, I will tell you, is not recommended.
You know what, Josh, I think this has, this
Or,
might,
unless, of course, you want to run for mayor, Josh.
But no, actually, there is precedent for that in Ohio. As a matter of fact, when I was consulting, I did a project for Cleveland Heights just prior to them going back from city manager back into a strong mayor form of government. Cities do that, I won't say with regularity, it is an undertaking, but it's just as common, I would say, for cities to come the other direction, where they go from strong mayor into more of a council manager form.
yeah.
But it's a little bit deeper than maybe just a full-time status question.
And here's a
Yeah.
way to look at it, just for a civics lesson briefly. If
Zach, can you pull the mic closer to you? Sorry.
Yeah, there we go. So, sorry. For a little civics lesson, briefly, I always use the analogy that a city is like a business, right? We offer services, we collect money, we operate like a business that doesn't operate for profit, right? We net zero. this is the board. Josh is the CEO. Josh runs the day-to-day operations. Then we have board meetings twice a month to oversee our 2 employees and the operations there. So the way that the city operates is no different than Amazon, Tesla, big corporations. Y'all are our residents are the shareholders. You all own equal share to this business. And you get to vote on your board of directors, just like you do if you own stocks and you have enough stock where you're a voting member of a company. So I'm a big proponent for the city manager form of government because it is an equitable system, just like private enterprise is. I think kind of where they got the form, the idea for that. So
John Patterson was the one who came up with it.
City of Dayton.
Yeah, CEO of NCR after the flood in 1913. He couldn't stand how poorly the response was handled. And he said, we need to professionalize the ranks. We need professional directors. We need professional folks in different disciplines, not just someone who won an election that could then take over a department, essentially. But
For that, I will say amen. But can I say something to John? It has not related to this. I just wanted to thank John for putting your history out on the house that we demolished, had to demolish. Appreciated the history that you put out on the house, and it's unfortunate that it had to be, but it was, I've been watching that house for a long time, and it was time. Nobody put money into it, so. Hope something positive goes there.
yeah. Well, if there's no other thoughts on what was brought up, we can always discuss that at a future meeting, and the law director can provide some guidance as well. But I think it was good to get some clarity on exactly what a term means. And if there's concern that the current mayor is hard to access, then I would certainly welcome anybody who want to get a hold of me. It's not hard to do. When I met this guy, he literally just called my cell phone unanswered, like, hello? Is this mayor? Like, yeah. Who's this? And we became buddies. So that's how easy it is. And I would say that for all the council members up here, we're a very accessible group. I really do believe that. Moving along to our discussion items, I'll turn it over to the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just a couple of discussion items, some food for thought. So one of the things that I've been doing at the start of the new year to do a little bit of housekeeping is to look back through some of our existing codes and ordinances, just to try to identify some places where some cleanup may be warranted. One of the first items that I wanted to bring forward to you today has to do with Chapter 134. This is the chapter about the Budget Committee. We've talked a little bit about this, I think, on a couple of other occasions, probably during the budget workshops or budget sessions last year as well. This is an ordinance that was adopted relatively recently in 2021. The main challenge with this is that the way that the creation and membership of this committee is laid out, it's supposed to be very large. So you can see right there in Section A that the committee shall consist of 28 members according to this ordinance, consisting of a primary and an alternate from each voting precinct. That's actually slightly out of date because after this ordinance was passed, the precincts were renumbered. We actually have a few more, I believe. So the theoretical size of this group is higher than 28 folks.
34.
34, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And, there's a whole lot of provisions in there about term and everything else. The main operational challenge that I've encountered is just that we have had very, very limited interest. And we've had folks come and folks go, and not a lot of sort of consistent interest in wanting to come to a budget committee meeting every month. We're basically, as it's described in this ordinance as written. So my thought would be, I'm certainly happy to keep it. We're not necessarily running afoul. We're not being fined or anything, because we haven't stood this up. But it is somewhat ineffective to keep this ordinance on the books as written. So I mostly wanted to set the table for a conversation today about where council's appetite may be, whether that is to try to reduce or restructure this and continue to try to go find folks who may be interested, or to simply repeal the ordinance and pursue more of a quarterly update model. I know I've talked about doing that before, where I can have what amounts to an open house every few months. I'm also available as residents request to go meet with them and answer questions and things. of
As long
that
as it's a
nature
petted
as well.
bone.
Correct. I do still need to get a little name tag, since I meet there so often. But at any rate, mostly just wanted to, again, take a temperature check with council to see if there is appetite to amend or remove this ordinance from the books, and then what your sense is on what kind of a budget committee or equivalent presence you would like our community to have.
I would sooner reduce the membership requirements to something that's more sustainable than get rid of it altogether. This was created in response to citizens feeling that the budget and the spending of the city was inaccessible, and that there was a desire to get involved in setting the budgetary policy as individual citizens. I think that there's value in bringing them into the conversation if we can. This was an attempt at that. I think we did get involvement from interested citizens who have added value in the process. And I certainly appreciate their service to the city, and I would like to continue extending that opportunity to the citizens if we can.
So, you and I had conversations about this before I was on council. And when I first got involved, I still feel like it's true, there's a palpable feeling throughout our city of distrust in the way that the city handles its finances. That's my honest opinion. And my original thought that I brought up with you and Mark Carpenter was a third-party review. I don't know the frequency of how often we should do that, like annually, biannually, but having somebody from the outside come in and say, like, here's your budget, here's your opportunity areas. Like, it's not coming from us saying that, like, okay, this is how we feel like we should be spending money. We have someone else possibly come in and, like, give us, like, hey, here's where your money's going, or here's an idea on how you can best optimize X, Y, and Z. And they crack open the book. We have an audit done every year.
Right.
But just something more on, like, a strategic side. And then once that's completed, then have more of, like, a open house and let that person take questions from.
Yeah, open forum. I certainly agree with Zach that it's a hard, it feels like a hard thing to overcome, the gut reaction that many folks in our community have that there is some type of malfeasance or some type of chicanery happening with our budget or the money that we're supposed to be getting, or, you know, you guys ought to be audited. Well, we're audited once a year by the state. But I really did at the beginning, and April Franklin's no longer on council, but April and Zach and Mark Carpenter, I feel like worked very hard to stand up an opportunity for not just a budget committee to review many of the things that we go over, but went to great lengths to make sure there was broad geographic representation.
Mm-hmm.
And Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, 3 regular attendees?
Yeah, about. There was a period where we had 4.
Okay, so you were 25% larger than when you had 3. But as frustrating as it is with some of the things that people in the community might say, it's also equally frustrating that this is laid out exactly for what many folks would have asked for.
Mm-hmm.
I do agree with Brenda that I would rather try to reduce the number that's maybe required in our charter or in our code, and take another run at it. But I really do want more people in the community to ask questions that they're not sure about, and ultimately I'd love to build faith in the way that we're stewarding the financial resources that we have. And my personal experience is that when I'm able to have one-on-one conversations with people as mayor, whenever they want to meet, on a Saturday, during my lunch hour, after work, whatever, and I talk to them about some of the things some of the challenges that we have with our budget and some of the things we've been able to do in the last couple of years especially, they usually have a light bulb moment. And I just wish I could scale those conversations out, that more people could have those understandings. But I would certainly agree, it's frustrating when I think we had very high expectations and very high optimism when we started the budget committee, that we would have a lot of folks who wanted to jump in and ask questions, get involved, and be a part of the process.
Well, I think that when we formed this, there were a lot more questions about the budget. And I think Josh and staff have come a long way in giving us and putting it on the website and everything else to put that information out there. I mean, the whole purpose, my understanding, of putting this many people on there was to be able not only to get their input, but to also get that information out
To different neighborhoods.
better. And I don't think, well, since we only have 3, maybe 4 people coming to this, they can't do any better job of getting that information out than the 7 of us can. I mean, it's 4 additional on top of the 7, but, and I'm not saying that we get rid of it, but maybe downsizing it, definitely. But the other thing is, if we're getting the information out, I mean, that's the important part.
Well, I disagree that that's the only thing.
I didn't say it was the only thing. I said that's the important part.
Sure. But I think that when this was considered, there was an equal desire to have the citizens have an avenue to influence how we made our budgetary decisions. And I think that even when you have a small number, they're the ones that want to be there. They're the ones that want to influence. We're at least providing the opportunity.
But we have our budget meetings are open to the public. They want to influence our budget. That come in and talk to us. I mean, we're the ones that make that final decision.
To be fair, we're not, in our budget meetings, we're not going in detail, as we shouldn't,
Right.
with the budget.
Right.
Like,
No, I get it.
This committee is, from my understanding of its conception, is to do that, like, let's review it in detail. And we can say, since this committee's been created, our budget has been reviewed by residents that are not elected members of this board. Like, we've adopted a reviewed budget from the residents.
Yeah, we codified it.
Right.
We made it a part of the process. Yes, Ms. Lomach.
Yeah, I was just going to add that I don't think we're in any different position than a lot of other communities. I mean, I talk to people from all over, and everybody gets questioned about, I just was in discussion with one of the reps from Centerville, and he was telling me, don't ever let anybody give you a farm and a farmhouse and a place to be nice for the city if they don't give you money to take care of it. So I think every community has a certain group of people that will always question how you spend money.
Regardless of who we
Yeah.
have in the city,
Yeah.
the fundamental core of governance, and especially with like being fiduciaries of taxpayer dollars, is that the residents feel confident that their taxpayer dollars that they work really flipping hard for are spent correctly. And I think that this board in the last 4 years has done a really hard, worked really hard to make that transparent.
Well, I'll add, this is helpful, first of all, I should say, because I think I'm taking notes and I'm going to go formulate some ideas about maybe how we adjust this ordinance and move forward. And to me, this is a conversation that we can probably keep rolling as the year goes. So just to be really clear, I'm not looking for a up or down or
Cut it
anything
off,
this
yeah.
evening. But I do think just to weigh in and give you a little bit of context here, one of the challenges that I've run into from a management standpoint in terms of the conversations that we have had in the budget committee is that in my experience at least, a lot of times a budget committee, if it's very formal, will live in the actual budget process as a way of sort of delivering a recommended budget to the city council. And part of that role could be that they are supposed to prioritize discretionary funding. We don't have any discretionary funding. We have deficits. We don't have the ability to pay for what we have today. So a lot of what I've been doing in the budget committee for the last 3 years is explaining, if this income tax doesn't pass, we will be laying people off. If this revenue goes away, like marijuana, that has a meaningful impact on our ability to replace a fire apparatus or, to go get a new medic. So I think it's important to just remember that we're not operating from a place where we have excess, that we're able to get, I think, feedback from the committee on as far as how do we spend what we have. So much is that what I'm doing in those meetings is trying to educate, here's how state policy is affecting our budget. Here's how a stormwater utility fee affects our budget. And just trying to connect those dots. So it is, and it has been since I've been here, less of a exercise in terms of prioritizing things and much more of an exercise in education, basically trying to connect those dots. And I have gotten, I do want to be very, very clear, all the folks that have been on it, particularly Charlie Shivers and Jim Zayden and Mark Carpenter they've been excellent. They've been awesome as far as a sounding board. I show them the budget books, so they were really key in trying to help kind of drive and craft the messaging behind that. So just as a way of kind of buttoning this up, I think what I can do is give some thought based on what I've heard you all say here today, and I can go do some homework and maybe find some other peer organizations that use their budget committees in a slightly different way from how this is laid out. And maybe we try to craft a role where we can give them a bit of a more formal hook in the process, and maybe that role is about sort of how we're framing narratives in the budget book. How are we showing staffing changes year to year? Those sorts of things, and then trying to use, maybe that's the input point, rather than, here's $100,000, how do you want to spend it? Because we are not able to answer those kinds of questions, if that makes sense. So as long as that sounds good to you, I don't want to preempt any more conversation.
Well, I was going to say, big picture, I mean, what percentage of our citizens in our city know that we have a citizen budget committee that they can be a part of and have a say in?
It's been put out there.
I agree that it's been put out there, but I share the same concern with Andy that, if you miss the time that it flies, through the newsletter or the Facebook page, you may miss your opportunity to know. And I do believe that we can make more efforts, more consistent efforts in continuing to present these opportunities to engage with the city. I think there's always room for improvement, and I don't mean to disparage any of our efforts thus far, but I do think that that's something that's always needed.
More effort.
Mm-hmm.
I
No, we
can't
can do that.
disagree with that.
We can do that. I mean, I'll say, we've historically promoted it alongside other vacancies with other boards and commissions. We don't have good turnout for those either. And so it is something of a pattern in our community, but I think your point's well taken, and there's certainly not any intention to, just do it once, just to tick the box.
Yeah.
But I think that to your point, part of that is in developing a communication strategy and a branding approach that tries to keep this as fresh as possible, as green as possible.
Sure.
So we'll keep that in mind too, as the conversation goes.
Did Alan Gullett ever serve on the budget committee or come to a meeting?
Well, so that's, again, I don't mean to split hairs, but he attended several meetings for probably a 4-month period, 5-month period for a little while. But that, again, is part of this gray area where the more formal you try to make the committee to the point where council is actually making appointments, we're kind of building process and trying to get sort of that formal placement of folks on the committee. He attended in a very informal context, but I've been very open with everybody. Like, we tend to have them on I think it was the second Tuesdays of the month. And then the last couple of months, the committee itself has had difficulty meeting just between schedules. But we haven't turned anybody away. I mean, there's another resident in one of the nearby plats who sat in on one meeting one day just because he wanted to, and we were like, great, happy to
Yeah.
have you. But that, so the door is always open,
Yeah.
I would say. And I wouldn't intend to give you a recommendation that limits this committee in any way only to people that are appointed. But
Yeah.
that's something else that I'll look at.
Yeah, I was very happy with Alan's involvement. The conversation that he and I had started off very rocky with him not quite sure what it was that the mayor even does. And I was really happy to be able to meet with him on a Saturday and talk about some of the things that the council does and talk about some of our budget realities. And I said, I'll challenge you to go to a budget committee meeting. And he started going and he learned more. And I just kept thinking, like, I wish I could scale up that interaction with Alan. And if nothing else, turn him into somebody who maybe was a little bit more skeptical about what the city government does, into somebody who felt empowered to ask questions and then get involved. Because there's
Alan.
nothing, his name's Alan Gullett. And I apologize if it's Goulet,
That's
if I'm pronouncing it
okay.
wrong. But I just kept wishing I could scale up that interaction, that more people would feel that the doors are not closed here.
Touche, I think it's wonderful.
And get more folks to realize that. And there was, and again, I emphasize that the conversation we had started off very, very rocky, but it ended up, I thought, very positive because he was getting involved. And there's more folks, I think, that will take that step. We just want to make sure, maybe do a better job of letting them know the door is open for every citizen here. All right, Josh, you got all that?
Yep, no, that's helpful. I will take that back, do a little bit of homework, and I'll bring that back forward when the timing is right. The next item has to do with Chapter 185, Spot 03. And that concerns motor vehicle license taxes. So you can tell I was living in the 100s, right? So now we're down into the 180s. The thing that I noticed about this ordinance in particular is this was passed shortly after we incorporated, so it passed in June of 1995. This is the ordinance where we set.
That's a good summary.
Right, set the tax rate for motor vehicle registrations. And by ordinance, that is currently set at $10. As we're trying to think ahead about how do we look at, and that revenue, to be very clear, has to go into road-related
Right.
streets, operations, that kind of stuff. So as we're looking at those kinds of funding sources, and given that the initial ordinance hasn't been touched since the 90s, it looks like the actual rate may have been adjusted in 2019. I'm not sure if anybody on council remembers if you adjusted since then. But I mostly wanted to just get a sense from council about whether you have any appetite to look at this rate and potentially increasing it, to help try to increase those motor vehicle-related fees that we could apply to the service department and the streets themselves.
I thought $10 was the max the state would allow.
Okay, that could be. I don't know,
think that-
Jim, if you know off the top of your head either, but.
I would want to double check that, Councilmember Denning, to see if that's been amended. The state can absolutely put a cap on what a municipality
Right.
may
And
allow.
that's my understanding, and that was the reason that we changed it in 2019, because we were allowed to raise it to $10, so we did.
Because it was 5.
So,
So we
to
could go
me,
up 5 more.
We did,
All-
that's when we went up.
all we
front.
really
that.
need to say is that it is equal to the state's whatever, maximum or possible, and that way it would automatically go up anytime the state raised it.
Right.
And that we wouldn't have to therefore
Take the burden.
raise the taxes every time the state changed their rules.
Well, and that may be something worth considering, just as a way of sort of future-proofing.
But that,
our
to me,
compliance with the
future-proofs it.
state.
Yeah, just to make
If
it
we're not
whatever.
looking at it
Right.
on a regular basis, we're not 5 years behind.
The
Right.
number is $30. ORC 4504.24.
It says what?
Municipalities can charge up to $30.
Oh, really?
Yes. And it's on Greene County's website. Thank you, Greene County.
Well, let us do then some homework on that. So we'll double check, and then I would also, I mean, because I hadn't done an analysis of what, like our peers, what their rates are or anything else. I'm happy to do that, because if there wasn't any appetite to touch this at all. What I can do though is go do that homework as well, come back and try to see what other folks around us are charging. We'll confirm the maximum, and then I'll come back and give you more of a recommendation about what direction to take this one in.
Anecdotal piece of information, if you do an inflation calculator on 1995, what $10 is in 2025, it's $20.71.
Well, it was $5.95.
It was $5.95?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, so $10.35 then.
Double, basically.
Yeah,
All right, good to know.
107%.
All right. Any other questions or thoughts on motor vehicle tax before we move along?
Well, might as well look at license tax too. I just paid those. Getting your driver's license.
We don't have it.
Well, can we?
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, since we were behind in the dark on this, maybe we're
Yeah,
missing
there may
out.
be, not as far as I know.
I'd
I've never
have
heard of
to
one.
look at my receipt on what was broken out, because on my vehicle receipt, it breaks it out, but I didn't look at my receipt.
Well, we'll do some digging
Do
and
some
come back. Yep. The next item that I had, and I apologize for any confusion that I may have caused. Councilmember Andy Brown and I were talking at one point, and he had asked a question about, well, are there ways that we can maybe better position the Center of Flight property to do various things in the city? So, and we had talked at that time about things like Hometown Holiday. So I mostly included this discussion item as a way of sort of, again, prefacing, trying to set the stage for a conversation like that. So the Center of Flight is an underutilized property. I think, speaking for myself, the highest and best use is redevelopment. Obviously, getting jobs to go in there would help our budget and our bottom line, more than creating an event space, if you will. But in the meantime, what I mostly wanted to do is get a sense from council about whether or not there is an appetite to try to position that parcel. So I realize power is a constraint. One of the things that we could do, for example, is look at replacing a pole or trying to create access for outlets, things like that. Parking would be a challenge, I think, regardless of any event that we tried to host or partner with outside agencies on to have there. But I also thought this would be a good opportunity just to have a bit of a discussion, especially for folks that are newer to the community, about sort of the history of Hometown Holiday in general, because it did recently move from Airway Shopping Center to the school district. And so just to open the door to that conversation, I don't know if now is a good time to have our guest speaker approach, but again, I think that mostly what I'm after is we do have this land. We may be able to use this land to partner with other organizations in our community to help if that is something that is important to council and our partners. But I want to be sure that if we do that, we're doing that in the right context and that everybody kind of understands what may or may not be achievable in the interim until we're able to redevelop that parcel.
So I will ask our guest, Julie Denning, who had requested to speak on this topic, to please come to the podium and give your name and address for the record. I know this is your first time in this building, so I welcome you. This is,
I've already told Josh I need a cot in the back. Julie Denning, 4435 Schwinn, Riverside, Ohio, 45404. I'm here on behalf of the Hometown Holiday Committee, as well as the J.C.'s, and Lynn Domisic would be here in reference to the Chamber of Commerce. However, not knowing that this was going to be on the agenda until this morning, she is out of town. So, some history. Yes, we started Hometown Holiday in Airway Shopping Center. Had it there for many, many years. We started having some struggles. Their lack of participation. Believe it or not, there in the courtyard, when it's cold, it is about 10 degrees colder in the courtyard. Therefore, our little singing groups and that, we're having a real hard time singing. Not to mention, we had businesses kind of leaving that event while it was there. And we just saw a need to grow and to be more visible.
The tree got taken down.
Well, the tree was a big thing. The tree that was there already had 2 trunks. It was dead, had been struck by lightning multiple times over. Never were sure if we were going to have a tree that year. Then they were supposed to be planting a new one. They did, however, the one I have in my home that we cut down every year is bigger than the one that's there. Hence, we had to stop and think, is this now still the best place to hold the event? Is it still the grandiose event that we've always wanted it to be and we've always strived to be? The other thing, let me take a step back. The event started as a group of volunteers from the community, and it was a representative from every nonprofit in the community that came to those meetings. Over the years, there became 2, 3, 4 of us at a meeting. To recent years, 2 of us at meetings, myself and Lynn. So there was some communication because Airway Shopping Center also had decided that during some of the COVID years, even though a lot of restrictions were lifted and we should be able to have an outdoor event, Airway Shopping Center management decided no. Well, that upset us because we'd already put in a bunch of work, and they would wait until like late September, October. Well, the event is in fairly early before Thanksgiving. That presents a problem for those of us who are volunteer and doing this on our own time to bring something to the city. So the discussion began after the last time we had to cancel about 45 days out with the school district. The school district was happy to have us, did bring on some added restraints, insurance, things of that nature. The JCs carry the insurance for the event. And then the chamber, Lynn and I both, we work in as far as working with the different groups. We've gained a lot more manpower than we've ever had by having it at the school and involving the school districts. We have more people for entertainment than we've ever had before, to the point that we're worried this next year, if we keep our timing the way it is, we won't have enough time slots, which is a good problem to have finally, instead of people saying, oh, it's gotten too cold tonight, we're not bringing the kids out. That was happening because of the way the wind was in the tunnel. We don't have that at the school. So here we are. This is the reason we were a little caught off guard, and I wanted to be here tonight, is I wanted to make sure that there were no misconceptions of this being a true city, a Riverside sponsored event. We've always had the city's name on sponsorship and that because we've always borrowed traffic barriers and things of that nature. And way back when there was a special fund from the mayor doing weddings and stuff, they would donate like $250 and that. However, still, the 2 main partners in this is the Riverside Chamber and the Riverside JCs. It is our event. Okay, so I wanted to, I'm not trying to bust anybody, I'm just want to make sure you talked about history, and that's our history. We are very happy. The community is very happy with the location right now. The tree, when it shines in those lights at night, if you have not went by and seen that, we have so many emails on that of the people saying how much nicer it is. The families coming out. I get at least 10 or more families stop me personally the night of and saying, I'm so glad you moved it. We have so much more fun. And we have more vendors. We have more space. We can bring the food trucks, which is the big thing. Now, center of flight. No electricity. Parking would be a nightmare. And walkability from wherever you might be able to park people safely. Because here's my take from the JC, since we do the insurance and the liability insurance. I don't know how level that ground is out there. We never know if it's going to be raining before, snowing before, or what's going to happen with the ground before that event. We've always had asphalt to park on, both locations. So it's never been an issue. My issue would be with covering that insurance. We're just a small nonprofit. Our money comes in, it goes out to help kids and families and senior citizens in the community. As most of you know, we don't keep a dime in savings. I mean, we really don't. Even if you saw our savings account now, right after Haunted House, it is not big, okay? We can't afford a lawsuit, okay, even though we carry the insurance. So I would not feel comfortable covering that. So anyways, those are some things. If you got it to the point that it was truly an entertainment district, which if you wait for your UDO, putting on the other hat, that there is a lot of interest in that becoming an entertainment district. With that, then you're going to have the infrastructure. And then maybe at that time, maybe it's not the full-blown Christmas lighting, but what about a nice Christmas concert? Okay? And I will come and I will help and I will volunteer.
And sing.
Uh-huh.
And sing.
Oh, I don't know about that. I'll get my brothers to come sing. I'm not the singer in the family. But anyways, you do that, I will help you any way you need to promote that entertainment center down there. But right now for Hometown Holiday, it's just not a conducive place for that. And I'm not even sure even in the future, because it's out of sight of our residents, our primary residents. Yeah, the base will see it, they'll love it. But our residents, we need that feeling of that hometown for our residents, we believe. But I'll help you do anything else you need down there if the infrastructure is put in.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Denning.
And I might add that one of the things that makes a lot of money, not a lot of money, but money towards feeding the families at Christmas is a horse and buggy ride. And there's, as I've thought through this today, there's nowhere down there safely without inconveniencing the motel and a lot of other things. And there's lines for that. I've manned that for years. And there's lines that wait forever to ride on that buggy. And that's one of the things that I don't think could happen at
They would.
Center of Flight.
You know, I know my time, but they would not, the buggy people would not go into contract with us down there.
Right.
Because there's no safe path
Right.
where you could really block everything off. And the same thing goes for our Christmas with kids. A big chunk of that money is also
Microphone.
raised through, I know, better.
A big chunk of the money raised for the J.C.'s portion of the family and kids that we help out is through Santa Pictures, and we have to have a guaranteed dry location for the expensive equipment that we have, the printers and the cameras, and electricity, again, electricity.
Well, let me be clear, Ms. Dan. I appreciate the backstory and the info and everything. You told me a lot of stuff I didn't know, so I appreciate that very much. And I want to be clear that when I floated this idea to Josh about possibly moving it to the Center of Flight area, it was never my intention to take it away from the J.C.'s or anything like that. I never had any thought about it, being a Riverside-sponsored activity. I just, you get a thought in your head and you see a pretty picture of, that whole center area being a nice Christmas tree like they have it, like at the Green or at Austin Landing or something. And, the vendors and stuff. And you made a lot of good points about the asphalt area not being a lot of places to park and stuff like that. So, yeah, I definitely see that.
And I appreciate all of that. I appreciate the forethought as a resident, as a mini committee member in the city. I appreciate that. I think just maybe going forward, a piece of advice I would have is maybe contact the entities that actually handle those things before putting it on a public agenda. You know what I'm saying? Because that kind of riled things up this morning. Got me out of bed real quick.
I will own that, so the reason that I had it listed on the agenda was, again, because I think the conversation that we had was really about the city has assets, and we're trying to deploy those assets to help the community and help our partners. I'm not at a place to have that conversation with you or to offer that asset if they don't want to do it.
Right.
So it was not any effort in any way to undermine anybody. It was just about trying to get a sense from council about whether or not this is something that they even want to entertain. So, again,
I know you well enough to know that you wouldn't intentionally do that, but, not knowing exactly how it all came about. And I think it's good for us all to talk about it.
Sure.
And have that conversation. That's kind of what this portion of the meeting's about. And like I said, anytime the city needs anything, I'm normally one of the first ones, anyone can tell you, to volunteer. And I'd be happy to take it anywhere. If we can get that leveled out enough to be able to have a big old concert down there and bring some entertainment in, like a an after-work Friday party, where people come off the base and they stop, they eat at food trucks, they have a couple drinks, and they have some good music. Springfield J.C.'s did an awesome job with that down in their center area and did it for multiple years. And it was one Friday every month of summer. I think that could be a fantastic location. Or even back here in the back, we've talked about that too, but that's never went very far. So, but you're interested in doing something like that? I'll help you do it.
All right. Well, is there any other discussion from the six of us on the Center of Flight's thoughts that Josh brought forward?
I think making it an entertainment area might be good, and small steps would be if we wanted to add some power and/or even level out a spot so that food truck, kind of a food truck court type thing. But again, we don't have any money to be able to do any of that. So, if we find some way to get some funding or something like that, I think that, especially now that Springfield Street Gate is open 6 to 6, if we put food trucks out there, it wouldn't be a bad idea, because otherwise they're still coming into Riverside one way or the other, but the food trucks would be a positive thing. But then we need to take some steps to make that into a food truck area if that's what we want. And I think it would also work well with the museum and some of the evening projects that they run. We might be able to do something to make that more, and then it could build on itself. But I think the biggest problem over there right now is lack of power and lack of parking.
I just want to be remiss to say, the plan for Center of Flight right now is to sell it, right? Like, we were trying to find someone to acquire it from us?
Won't
Develop it to
Develop
make
it.
money. I mean, an entertainment center is a great idea, but it doesn't bring income tax
Right.
much to the city.
I mean, I think one of the things that, so yes, we want it developed,
Right.
but you have to paint a picture of like what it could be. And I think a big part of that is walkability. And where it's situated, there's not a lot of where you would walk to it.
Right, it's not very well connected currently.
Yeah, and if there's not parking, so you can't really drive to it, like, I think that we have to figure that part out.
Well, we've had a train station proposed, we've had soccer fields proposed there, we've had all kinds of business people look at it, but it's rooftops.
Wasn't this put in our strategic plan on what?
Well, so
Yeah.
We paid a bunch of money.
It's a complicated problem. And to Ms. Lomacz's point, I was just down in Cincinnati a couple weeks ago, meeting with some retail folks, and they basically told me, there's no way. There's no way you're gonna get any retail there because of rooftops and traffic.
Right.
And so what I'll tell you is, but I do think, to Ms. Denning's point, we have an opportunity based on where we're at in our comprehensive land use planning process and our zoning code rewrite to position that parcel for something someday. And then the third layer of that cake would be if we can pull off a roadway realignment and change the face of the Woodman corridor, that by itself goes a long way toward the visibility problem that parcel has.
Yeah.
So we're already, I would say we're already doing the foundational work that we need
There's
to do.
dominoes lining up.
Yeah, in order to move that parcel in the direction it needs to go in. We might just kind of stay the course and try to see some of those things through to completion, and then we will know a lot more at that time about how to move next. So.
All right.
That parcel never, that's what owner-operators do. They're gonna drop a pin in
Yeah.
Google
I've
and
had
draw
the
a radius
whole
around
story.
that and say like, okay, yeah, this doesn't fit our formula of like why a
It doesn't
Chick-fil-A
cross the
doesn't.
threshold of-
Well, part of it's because of the water field and the lake and the river and the base that have no housing.
I think just from the sheer like economic standpoint of what business owners look at when they're
Exactly.
going to invest $1 million some odd dollars in a property is like, yeah, I'm not going to return my.
Nope.
And for the last 4 years, there's been very little to no traffic on Springfield Street. Now, there is a lot of traffic on Springfield Street now, trust me. I sit in the traffic every morning, so I think having a new traffic study to get a car count would be helpful, not only to decide whether or not we need to reevaluate the paint on the asphalt that exists, but also it would help us sell Center of Flight to retailers if we can give them a decent head count on how much traffic goes up and down that street every day.
Got all that, Josh?
I'm good to go.
All right.
We'll turn it over to Ms. Llewellyn for an update on a proposed Citizens Academy.
It is a proposed Citizens Academy with 4 meeting dates, tentative meeting dates.
Can you speak in the microphone, please, clerk?
Oh, you can hear me.
I want to make sure everyone can hear you.
Just so our
You
clerk
can
can get.
hear
the-
me.
I want to make sure
saying
the
from
clerk can get the minutes correct.
I will get them correct. It's a 4-week program to run every other week. It's to provide citizens of Riverside or business owners as well, the opportunity to just get an inside look more at the different departments of the city and get a better explanation of all the activities they do, the equipment they use, the staff that they have to do the jobs, and the operations they're doing for the community. So I've broken it out for 2 hours for 4 Thursday nights every other week in April and May, hoping that we will get, we're going to cap it at 15 attendees. It is free of charge. And kind of the goal is to not only share the local government and the functions and operations we're doing, also to answer any questions that citizens or business owners may have, as well as maybe find people who might be interested in our boards and commissions.
Move to approve.
Well, we look forward to seeing the idea come to fruition, and I think it's something that it's a wonderful idea, and I'm certainly hopeful that a number of citizens and business owners and people that work in our community will take advantage of.
I already know the answer to this question, but for the record, is there any fee to participate in this program?
No, not at this
That's okay.
time. Yep.
Oh,
But
I missed
I
it.
said it probably rather, I was looking over my bullet points right after we were going to cap it at 15 attendees. So. And we're mostly interested also in our boards and commission people to come to this as well, so they can probably get a little more insight too. So
Is there somewhere someone could go to find more information?
tomorrow, it will be blasted. So yes, I
Blasted.
will get it. There is a
That's
media
minutes.
alert ready to go out. I already have an online electronic form ready to go live, and we will get something on social media.
This is very exciting. Thank
It
you
is.
For working on this.
It is. I just now have to tell department heads what night to be here.
Excellent.
In that regard, I had a very interesting experience yesterday at the Bob Evans at 35 in Woodman that has appeared to be almost dying, and it was packed yesterday, has been, they have a new manager, he wants to be involved with the city, I spoke with them here at the city today. The new manager, there was a line to pay your bill, that's how busy they were, and the food was amazing. So let's hope that it's going, and he wants to get involved with the city. He made note of the things that are going on Linden Avenue, and so he's really, really excited. So I hope Lori wants us to come over and sit down and talk to him about what he can do.
We'll get the
So,
mayor and Josh to move their meetings to Bob Evans.
yeah.
Well, what I will do is
I mean, it
tomorrow,
was exciting to see that many, I mean, the parking lot was packed. And then I had to wait for a table, and then people were standing in line to pay to leave. And he admitted, and I watched 5 different, while I was standing in line to be seated, 5 different people come in and pick up DoorDash or whatever. I mean, they were just busting busy, and the food was wonderful.
well, what I will do tomorrow is I'll send each of you the flyer as well as the link online. If you want to send it on to people you know, think would be interested, that would be great. And not all of them will be held here, because we're going to take them, we're going to have meetings over at the police station and fire station and Public Works, because we want people to see where we work and the conditions that we have to work in and the equipment and where everything is stored. So we want people to get a good rounded view of their government.
Thank you, Katie.
Other items?
Two quick things. I did reach out to Senator Blackshear and Representative White, our state delegation, about SB 56. The update since our last meeting is that the legislature took the excise tax provisions related to marijuana out of that bill, and then they passed SB 56, but now the excise tax provisions, my understanding is, have moved as a part of the conversation about the state's operating budget. So we're not quite out of the woods in terms of trying to get that revenue, as the public voted on a couple of years ago. So at any rate, we will continue to follow up with our state delegation and others, and I'm sure if folks are interested in reaching out and expressing their opinions in either one way or the other, that they'd love to hear from all of their constituents about this very important issue as well.
Can I ask you a question? Can that, I'm sorry, Mayor, is it okay?
What's the question? Go ahead.
Money that's retroactive due to us, they can take away? That question was asked of me, and I mean, we've already, 2 years earned our part of the tax? Can
For
they
the-
take that we're expected to get this spring?
Yes, that's what they're talking about doing. We would expect our first.
Not what's coming forward, but what's.
The recreational marijuana has been legal since,
Since 2023.
but the
Right.
first recreational marijuana sold in Ohio was in August of last year, correct?
Correct.
So the first payments by ORC were due to happen this quarter.
Right.
Through our county treasurer.
Yes,
That's the money
yes.
we're waiting on, but
Right.
it's not money going back 2 years, I think it's money going back maybe 8 months.
So the question that I've been asked is, can they retroactive?
Right, yeah.
Not allow that?
I just want to make sure we understood
I
that
mean, 'cause
the
you
money
were on
would have
TV.
been,
You on TV, and that did purple up some questions.
Yeah, the short answer is the state has not made any payments to any locality under the
Well, that's
The
what I
current
told
law.
them, yeah.
So, yeah, they can change the law and not make a payment, which is exactly what they're talking about doing.
Right, okay,
So-
well, I just wanted to get that
Mr. Manager,
clear.
there was that lag in the effective date when the voters passed the law, so there is, it seems retroactive, but there was a lag before that was collected, and they are within their rights to remove that provision that provides that to the local government fund and the host community cannabis fund. So we'll watch the budget bill closely and keep everyone updated.
Because Josh has been on the news several times.
yeah, and I just want to make sure that people that are paying attention or are watching this in our community understand that when the voters decided on that issue statewide, it wasn't as if the next day recreational
They get
marijuana
money,
was being
yeah.
sold.
Correct.
And it wasn't as if the next day that money was then transferred to us. There were, as Mr. Miller said, there were lags. And the reality of it was, the first legal recreational marijuana wasn't sold in Ohio until August of last year. So that wasn't 2 years ago. That was, 6 months ago. And then the money that we would be due is supposed to be paid to us on a scheduled timeline from our county treasurer through the approved language in the ORC, which they're trying to change. So call your rep, call your state senator. And the other item,
Other item.
the other brief item.
Other brief item, just very quickly, a quick update. We have been in conversations with the owners of the proposed Ascent project. They are still trying to get financing in order, so I don't have a firm timeline on when we'll bring the proposed rezoning forward to council. I do have an update. The owner is interested in moving forward with the demolition of the old Capitol Cleaners. It got a little bit more colorful over the weekend, so we're certainly in conversations with them about that. And we will keep that ball moving, at least on the demolition front, as rapidly as we can. That's all I have.
All right, addition by subtraction. Council member discussion. Are there any members with us tonight that would like to make a comment on anything or an announcement of any type?
I have nothing.
I want to give a kudos to our staff who have successfully pulled off 2 and have one more large interaction with classroom students in our district that are in third grade. I was able to take part last Friday in an activity at Seville Elementary, and Taryn and Naya had previously carried out the same city planning exercise with third graders at Beverly Gardens, and I believe they're at Brantwood next Friday. And this Friday, thank you. And I just had a phenomenal time. I also want to give a big shout out to our Teachers Academy students at Stebbins High School who also helped facilitate that. I know Ms. Denning was with me as well in her capacity as a school board president. And it was just great to talk to a lot of these kids. It really grasped a lot of the connection points that the map of our city really makes, and hearing what they thought was important, and hearing them talk about how important parks are, how important libraries are, how important amusement parks are.
McDonald's.
And McDonald's, yeah. But it was, they were wonderful kids. I had a great time, and I just want to say thank you to Josh, and I know he'll pass along to the staff, thank you very much. But Naya and Taryn did a phenomenal job of organizing it. Thank you to the Ohio chapter of the American Planning Association for giving us the activity, but I had a lot of fun.
And
It was
a lot
great.
of that is Naya's initiative, so we're really grateful for her and her excitedness in terms of pursuing.
Well,
things
she's
like
an
that.
AICP certified planner.
Enthusiasm, thank you.
So people that certification usually go a step above. So, good job, Naya.
I had a great time. And
I'm
those
volunteering
young
for that
people
this
were
Friday.
like, great teachers.
Oh, you're gonna have a blast. It really is a lot of fun. And they were attentive, and they had good questions, and it was a lot of fun. So thank you to the schools for helping us pull that off, and for our staff for helping pull that together. And if there's nothing else from my fellow council members, I will adjourn the meeting at 7:07 PM. Thank you.